Good morning, folks. Today we have a special look back on a forgotten war.
Today we will talk about the Korean War. Ever since the Japanese Empire left a power vacuum in 1945, the country has been divided into two.
That's right. The country was split into two separate temporary states, split on the 38th parallel. One ruled by Syngman Rhee in the south, and in the north by Kim Il-sung.
And ever since that split, the United States had feared North Korea will fall into the communist hands of China.
Wait, Jacob. Inform our viewers of the evolution of the Chinese political situation.
Yes, of course. On October 1st, 1949, Mao Zedong from the Chinese Civil War for the Chinese Communist Party joined the USSR. This established the People's Republic of China and pushed the nationalists to Taiwan.
Back to the Korean War. On June 25th, 1950, North Korean troops invaded southern Korea, crossing the 38th parallel, with the approval of aid from Joseph Stalin.
Wow, that's terrible. Was it contained?
No, the US and Southern Korean forces were unprepared and were pushed back to the Pusan perimeter.
Northern Korean troops captured Seoul, the capital of South Korea, just 3 days after crossing the 38th parallel. America quickly prepared for a counterattack with the help of 16 allied countries helping to fight in Korea.
The current president at this time, President Truman, wanted a quick victory in Korea while also preventing World War III with the communist regime. This indecisiveness was the reason for so many more deaths, because even though he wanted a quick war, his execution was heavily based on keeping the war minimized to the public because of the backlash he was already receiving for the containment of communism.
President Truman did not want a formal declaration of war in Korea, so he framed the U.S. involvement as police action, which limited support from America and wanted to gather the support of the United Nations.
With this, the war was considered forgotten because of lack of public attention, even though the number of American lives lost was around 36,000.
Back in the Pusan perimeter, in the end 1950, America, Korean, and allied nations established a counterattack with the leadership of General Douglas MacArthur to lead the Pacific Theater in World War II, attacking the enemy, landing at Incheon, and pushing back North Korean troops past Pyongyang, North Korea's capital, and inching upon China's border.
Then, North Korea received backup from their ally, China. MacArthur was pushed back to the 30th parallel. This was mostly because Truman did not want to take direct action against China, meaning a formal invasion of China.
Despite General MacArthur pushing back China near to the Yellow River and wanting to push more into China, even considering using the A-bomb and getting aid from the nationalist Taiwan, but President Truman denied this request since he wanted a limited war and containment of communism. And it was too late for a direct attack of China since they were pushing the United Forces back.
This sparked a feud between MacArthur and Truman, which MacArthur expressed through a letter to Congressman Joseph W. Martin Jr. Martin then released a letter to the public with the statement, "There is no substitute for victory."
Well, Amon, why was this line so important?
This line was a pivotal point for Truman because it ruined all chances he had for re-election. He showed his lack of ability to properly handle the Korean War. Furthermore, the spread of communism.
The feud between Truman and MacArthur ended when President Truman, Commander-in-Chief, fired MacArthur for insubordination.
Truman's inability to handle criticism by MacArthur further showed his inability to handle leading during a war.
Back over in Korea, after the year 1950, the war has been drawn into the 30th parallel, where both sides are unable to push forward, leading the war to a standstill.
The war had been in deadlock due to both sides being exhausted from years of fighting, and neither side had a military advantage. Furthermore, in the Soviet Union, on March 5, 1953, Joseph Stalin died, which pulled the Soviet Union's support for the war in Korea.
Due to his death and other factors, the Chinese and North Koreans were willing to negotiate with the UN and the US.
With Truman out of the running because of lack of support, Dwight D. Eisenhower was elected President of the United States.
Unlike Truman, President Eisenhower wanted to reach an armistice quickly with the war in Korea. To do this, he allowed back-channel diplomacy with China and the North Koreans.
On July 27, 1953, the Korean Armistice Agreement was signed officially, ending the Korean War and establishing a ceasefire and a DMZ along the 30th parallel.
This armistice stopped the armed conflict in Korea. The DMZ, located in Panmunjom, was a buffer zone between the two sides. This agreement also allowed prisoners of war to go back to their respective countries. However, this agreement did not formally end the state of war between the two sides.
Overall, the Korean War was part of a larger domino effect of communism and its spread throughout the East. This theory was first proposed by Eisenhower, which led to the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, or SEATO. SEATO was a proposed solution to the domino effect in Asia, but it failed because it failed in Vietnam.
Many years after the Korean War, the two sides are still separated today and both have very different ways to run their respective government.
North Korea is an oppressive dictatorship that has far fallen behind its southern counterpart in terms of development and advancement, but they have a successful nuclear weapons program that has caused tensions and sanctions worldwide. South Korea is a capitalistic democracy with the fourth largest economy in Asia and 12th in the world.
Now in modern times, despite the war being considered forgotten by many, today it is still being recognized with memorials all across the world showcasing the gone but not forgotten soldiers who risked their lives in Korea.
This has been our special segment on the Korean War, and we are signing off. Till next time, folks.